Siberia. That's the nothing personal word of the day. It is Thursday, August 7th, 2025, and I don't say Siberia lightly, especially on today's episode, which is brought to you by DraftKings. DraftKings, the crown is yours. Siberia is associated with a place where people get sent to. They get banished when bad things happen. Sometimes managers, players, coaches get let go, but not banished. They get rehired, or they become reassigned within the same organization. I think what's going on with the New York Mets requires a Siberian solution. Throughout the course of the last almost 2 months, we've taken many opportunities to go through the Mets slide and how they went from everything is coming up roses and Coca is whistling Dixie out of his pituitary gland, thinking about October dreams and ticker tape, to a place now where they are holding on to a wild card lead as the third wild card and wondering, will they do anything other than look up to Philadelphia ever again? And normally, I would tell you that panicking is not the order of the day, nor waiting for a tweet from Steve Cohen which says, this is just a stretch, everything's fine, because that's been generally my point of view. But I hit my limit yesterday. And I hit it not because the Mets lost to the Guardians. I didn't hit my limit because the Mets got one hit where Juan Soto hit a home run off Gavin Williams, and who pitched 8 1/3 no-hit innings, trying to get the Guardians' first no-hitter in decades. No. I hit my limit because listen to what the manager said after the game.
It's hard to kind of just pinpoint one thing, but you look at the game today or the past few days, we go in with a game plan and we haven't been able to make adjustments as they're making adjustments to us as a whole, as a team. Yes, individually, you got to make some adjustments, but as a team, you got to be able to recognize how they are attacking us, and we haven't been able to do that. Today was pretty easy. You saw the curveballs below the zones against the lefties, finishing lefties with fastballs at the top. He threw some two seams against our righties. But once you get that first time through, we got to be able to make those adjustments and recognize what he's trying to do, as to the whole team. And I feel like not only today, but as the past few weeks or so, we haven't been able to do that. And good hitting teams are able to make those adjustments, and they're able to. All right, that's how they're attacking us. We got to do this. We got to flip the script here, and that's where I think is the next step for us to be able to recognize that.
How do you feel about that if you are the hitting coach for the New York Mets? If you're Jeremy Barnes and Eric Chavez, the two hitting coaches, I assume you realize that you're about to lose your jobs, whether it's today or at the end of the season. And in terms of team adjustments during the game, what are we talking about here? Are we talking about when the players look at the iPod or the iPad during they don't look at an iPod, when they look at the iPad during the game? Why wouldn't the coaches be saying to the players, listen, you understand that your approach is wrong, and that if there's 2-seamers, 4-seamers that are away, and they're attacking the top of the strike zone, or they're throwing 2-0 spin every time, whatever the case may be during the course of a game, is that the coaches? Is it the players' responsibility? Is it the manager's responsibility? Well, spoiler alert, it's the coach's responsibility during the course of the game, but it is the manager's responsibility not to meet the media after a game and pretend and do the Heisman toward the coaches, the Heisman toward the players, when the facts state that it hasn't been a couple of weeks that the Mets have had a problem. It's been since June 13th. Right now, it's August 7th, and he gave you that tape August 6th. Think about a team that has gone 18-28 since June 13th and think to yourself, why does that happen? Well, generally, if you're not hitting and you're not pitching, you're not going to win games. But what the Mets are doing puts not hitting in a, they can't even see not hitting from here. When you look at what their ranks are in average, on base, slugging, hits. They are 28th or 29th in Major League Baseball in those categories. There's only 30 teams. This is a playoff team. This was a team at one point with the best record. This was a team that had a huge division lead. This was a team that on June 13th was 4.5 games up over the Phillies, and all of a sudden it's not that they're in a little slump. That's a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I'm getting nervous. 4 weeks, oi. We're now up to almost 2 months. But don't worry, they've got the pitching. Remember all the excitement with the great pitching when the season started, how locked down their starters were. You never heard of them, but Montas and Manaea were hurt, and they were just stepping up, people in their place. Number 1 in ERA. Well, guess what? Since June 13th, the starting pitchers are 26th in Major League Baseball in starting pitching ERA. And when you are 26th in starting pitching ERA, and you're 29th in average and 28th in slugging, when you can't get hits because you're 29th in hits, guess what? You can't get wins. And when you don't get wins, you fall in the standings. Forget the fact that the Marlins have made up 11 games on them, because that's not wholly relevant. Look at the Phillies. The Phillies made up 7 games in that period of time. And as a Mets fan, you may be thinking back to the 2000s. Well, we blew a 7-game lead with 17 to go. So now we just have lost 7 games in the standings over almost 2 months. That means we're doing great. The problem is, it is no longer, the Mets situation is no longer acute. It's no longer about a moment that you just dismiss and say, we will get through it. This is now becoming truly what their season is. Now, at the end of the season, you look back in totality, and if they're middle of the road in ERA and they're middle of the road in average and runs scored, you'll say, okay, they're a middle of the road team. But the fact is, when you've got World Series aspirations, which the Mets do, you are very focused on how you are doing in the second half of the season as you head into October. You want to go in the way our team did. You go in as the best team in baseball since May 31st. You go in with momentum that carries you in your mind into the tournament in October, where you can get the breaks, where you can take advantage of the breaks, and you can end with a ring. Not only do the Mets not look like they are ring-worthy, my concern is that in a National League where the Reds they have a really good team if you examine them and watch them, which later in the show we're going to ask you to watch them tonight. But is it possible if the Mets are no longer October-worthy at all? It's one thing being not ring-worthy, but October-worthy? Juan Soto has it nailed. Nailed with what's happening. Quote, I really don't know. I really don't know what's going on. But definitely we have the talent, and the guys are capable of doing damage. So I think one day it's going to turn around. That's my $765 million dude. I don't know. What do I know? I just work here. Isn't that a funny thing that you do that in your place of work? You know you do. When something's going on and someone says, what do we do? How do we fix this? What do I know? I just get a paycheck every 2 weeks. What do I know? You're Juan Soto. You can say that. If I'm the GM of the team, president of the team, and I see that my manager has said what he said, my number one highest paid player has said it, guess what it's time for? Very, very quietly. This is the moment I'm having a team meeting. We got an off day today, which the Mets need. I'm going into the next series thinking to myself, this becomes a critical moment, Coca. And before we get off the Mets, I just want to give you an idea of where they are headed next and whether or not they have a chance to actually get a little rebound. And guess where they're flying today. Just guess. Where's the one place well, there's two. Where's the one place in the National League you don't want to go when you are cold as ice, foreigner? Where is it? That's right, baby. Milwaukee. That's where the Mets are headed. Uh-oh. Brewers got their 70th win yesterday. Best team in baseball. Best team in baseball. I'll give you a wait to see, Coca. An official wait to see here to tie a ribbon on this Mets talk. Wait to see when we tell you something's going to happen. Check out David Samson podcast.com and you can see our wait to sees. Well, add one for August 7th. The Mets will make coaching changes at the end of the season. Hard stop. Guaranteed. So the Mets are on a plane today. You travel on the off day. They'll probably meet at the Citi Field. Then you get the team bus to LaGuardia. Let's say for Milwaukee, it's an hour and a half flight. You get an hour back, so you get there about a half hour later. You want to land and get yourself to the Pfister. Let's say you want to take off at 2. That's the one place you don't want to go. What about the other? Boston. Boston has been so good at home. Boston's just been so good, period. They're putting distance between themselves and the Yankees. They are trying to see if they can catch Toronto. And Boston was in the news yesterday because, hallelujah, John Henry and Tom Werner, you did it. You spent money. Is that what fans are saying in Boston? Because give me a small break. Giving credit to an owner. I wouldn't take credit for signing a pre-arbitration eligible player to a long-term deal. Like, yeah, we really locked this guy up. Roman Anthony was locked up for years anyway, but at 21 years old, the Red Sox, according to sources, have agreed on an 8-year, $130 million deal that can become $230 million. $230 million to Roman Anthony? Now, don't get me wrong. Roman Anthony has been a stud since he was called up. Absolutely outstanding. Don't get me wrong. He has a chance to win Rookie of the Year. Well, no, let me take that back because Nick Kurtz is going to win Rookie of the Year. So, Roman Anthony has a chance to come in second in Rookie of the Year. That's awesome. Do you know when you read these numbers that I just beg you to go one level of detail more than what generally you do? Roman Anthony can't make $230 million. Don't say it's a $230 million contract because I'll tell you right now, the scenario that was put in place in his contract for him to get $230 million is a chef's kiss. Here's all he has to do, and it's easy. Every year, 2025, that's this year included, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33. 9 more years, baby. 9 years, he has to win the MVP of the American League. Coco, I don't know the answer to this, but I'm going to take a wild guess, and I mean wild, that no player has won 9 MVPs in a row. I mean, I'm sorry. It is irresponsible journalism for me to say that. Oh, he also has to be an all-star every one of the years, and he has to finish first and second in the Rookie of the Year this year. If he does all that, I have a better chance of dunking on a 10-foot hoop without springs in my shoes. NGTH, baby, never going to happen. But $130 million, it's not too shabby. Guaranteeing that to a 21-year-old. And Roman Anthony had the quote that just, it made me so happy. He's 21 years old. Just keep that in mind. 21. He said, there's nowhere I'd rather be. If you were 21 and someone offered you $130 million to do what you love to do and you're really good at, and you say to them, listen, I got to tell you, I know this is where I want to be. That's like getting married at 21 and saying, oh, this is the love of my life. We're going to be married for 70 years. And then you realize, wow, it is super unlikely that you're going to be married for 30 years only because you're 21 years old. 21-year-olds, and I know that there's a very high percentage of you who are that age, and I love you for watching and listening. I do. But frankly, none of you know crap about anything. And I love that. I didn't either. But God, did I think I did. When you've only experienced one major league organization, you say to yourself, oh yeah, I'm a Red Sox for life. Now, I'm happy that he got the deal. I'm happy that the Boston Red Sox fans are happy that they've locked him up. What I'm not happy about is they did it solely to make me look wrong when Roman Anthony was called up. And I said, what are the Red Sox doing? They called him up a week too early. They're going to get screwed in arbitration. And all of you fans said, arbitration? my guy John Henry is going to sign him well before that. And I said, well, they better. Well, you were all right, and they did. And it's not a surprise that he ended up at $130 million. Corbin Carroll was the last largest pre-arb deal, and he got 8 years, $111 million. And so they wanted to put Anthony just above that in terms of what 8 years are. There's a bunch of large pre-arbitration deals. The biggest one was Fernando Tatis. Remember when he got 14 years, $340 million? Remember the insanity of that with the Padres? Remember when the Royals, another small market team, oh no, we can't keep our guys. This is what a terrible sport. Bobby Witt got 11 years, $288. Oh, what do we do? Seattle, all we do, we're the farm team for everyone else. We have no offense. Let's give Julio Rodriguez 11 years. How about 12 years, $209? Done. The Tampa Bay Rays are a small market team. They can't do anything. Their payroll's small. Wait a minute. Let's give Wander Franco 11 years, $182. Well, let's not do that. That seems like a bad idea. If you look at the split of Roman Anthony's contract, it's important for you to know how money's paid because he's not arbitration eligible. He's just starting. If he had not signed this deal, his salary next year would have been the major league minimum plus a little raise. So let's say the major league minimum is $775,000. And let's say that you give, which we did, we had a scale that we would give raises to pre-arbitration eligible players according to how much service time they got, were they up for the whole year or not, where they ranked in league, rookie of the year, hits, average, and we applied the system equally to all pre-arb players. They would get different points on the scale, and each point would be worth, let's say, $10,000. You win the Cy Young, you get $50,000, things like that. So let's just say that Roman Anthony is kicking arse, and he would have come back next year, and he would have gotten the minimum plus $250,000. That would have put his salary at about $125,000. Well, as part of this contract, his salary next year is going to be $2 million. There is no scenario where the Red Sox would be paying him $2 million. He may make that from the pre-arbitration pool, which is a bunch of money the commissioner's office gives out according to a formula to players who have not yet reached arbitration. But that money doesn't come out of the Red Sox pocket. The Red Sox are overpaying Roman Anthony next year by at least $750,000. What about the year after? It goes to $4 million in 2027. Here's the problem with that. In order for you to go to $4 million the next year, you have to have a performing year your second year in the big leagues. You're doubling your salary. And that $4 million would be a first-year arbitration number. For me, it is unlikely he's going to get that. So, the moral is that you've got the Red Sox that are doing things that give them cost certainty, but they're paying a premium, where in the old days, if you gave cost certainty to a player, you would get a discount. And what the Red Sox have said is, we've got a new plan. We want to make sure that we've got players locked up so we know exactly what our payroll is going to be. Roman Anthony through 34. Earlier this year, they did Garrett Crochet. Remember the guy they traded for, the Cy Young candidate? Remember they gave him 6 years, 170 through 2031, locked up. Remember when they signed Brian Bello, 6 years through 2030. Rafaela, 8 years through 32. Christian Campbell, 8 years through 2032. They've got a core of players locked up in a way that makes you think, wow, is it possible they're going to get all these right? And the answer is no. I could give you a wait to see right now, but I don't want to make you wait all the way till 2032. But I don't think you're going to need to wait that long. But we did an official one already today with the Mets. But just, Coca, for reference, there is zero chance. Well, let me not say that. There is 0.1 chance that every player I just mentioned, Anthony, Crochet, Bello, Rafaela, and Campbell, will be on the Red Sox in 2032. We're in 2025 right now. Keeping that big a core together, go back to the World Series winning teams from 2019. Are there any Nationals left on that team? How many Braves are left from 2021? That's been 4 years. I know everyone says, oh, fire sale, Samson. Players move along. You don't have a core that big. Congratulations, though, to the Red Sox. That's pretty sweet. Sometimes I think back to my career in baseball. I still do. Going to the Marlins game this past weekend, being in Miami this week, hosting Dan's show for him for these 4 days. I think about being the president of the team for all those years, and I think about the players we had and the staff and the memories and the moments. It's hard not to. Such a big part of my career, though this is catching up quickly and will surpass it. That's funny, Coca, isn't it? We're going to be together longer than I was in baseball. Get ready, Coca. It's only year 6 right now. But I think back to the players we had, the players we traded for, the players we traded, and it's so nice to see them still in the league. And, Ozuna, Yelich, Stanton, the Yankees, Brewers, Braves. You don't often hear me talk about Nate Eovaldi. He was a young starter when we got him, and he had stuff. And when you have stuff, what you want to find is if you can add it to pitchability. Because if you combine stuff and pitchability, you got yourself a career. Stuff, pitchability, pension. Now, you can be a lefty and have stuff that goes away, pitchability that increases, and you can still get a pension. Yes, I'm talking to you, Jamie Moyer. You're welcome. But down deep in the heart of Texas, are you watching what Nate Eovaldi's doing? A couple days ago, he threw 8 scoreless innings against the New York Yankees, and it got me thinking, Nate Eovaldi with his $100,000 All-Star bonus, and you recall that I took a position on that after the All-Star game, that I don't know why Texas would write a check to Eovaldi for $100,000 when he wasn't an All-Star. I'm not changing my mind on that. There's no reason to have written that check. Nate Eovaldi signed a $75 million 3-year deal, and my view of that is a heavy deal for a guy still around. Love him. But he's 35 years old, number one. Number two, he has a career ERA over 4. Number 3, when you are that age with that performance over that period of time, because he's been around since my time, it is highly irregular for you to change and become something you weren't without using needles. And Nate Eovaldi is not using needles. So, how rare is it that after 19 starts in a season, that you have an ERA of 1.38? Because that's where Eovaldi is. We can talk about Skeens all we want. We can talk about Skubal all we want. How is it that Nathan Eovaldi is not the absolute favorite to win the Cy Young? Is it because everyone wants to give Skubal 2 in a row? Is it because Crochet on the Red Sox has been phenomenal, which he has? But you got to look at Eovaldi's season. Do you know how many pitchers have been better than Eovaldi through 19 starts? No one pitching today. How about Bob Gibson, Luis Tiant, Zach Greinke, and Vida Blue? 4 guys. 2 of them from the year I was born, which, as you know, is when the dinosaurs roamed. Zach Greinke was 2015, which is a decade ago, and Vida Blue was 1971. There has not been a season like this except once since 1971, and that was the Zach Greinke season when he was pitching, and he had 1.3 ERA. Eovaldi is dominant. Why are we not, Coco, where is he right now in Cy Young? What are his odds in Cy Young? Because how is he not? Is he like number 2? He ought to be. So, 3, but not even close? How is that possible? What are the fans who place the bets and make the odds, or the markets, who's not paying attention? I'm casting my vote right now. If the Tigers get caught, which I don't think they will, but if they do, and Skubal has one tiny hiccup, and I mean one tiny hiccup, if the Red Sox don't catch the Blue Jays, which they probably won't, and Crochet has another hiccup, and Eovaldi gets the Rangers to catapult over the Yankees, probably still behind the Mariners and the Astros, but catapults all the way, and he keeps an ERA after 25 starts, end of season, of below 2, you can bet your sweet bippy I'm voting for him. Although, I don't have a vote. Let's do a review, Coca, please. It's my favorite day to do reviews. Absolute favorite. Today is a Thursday. I don't know if I said that off the top of the show. Did I get the date wrong, Coca? If I did, just pretend I didn't. Thursday, I get to review a movie from my top 100. And today I'm reviewing movie number 8. Yes, you can find all these at davidsamsonpodcast.com. Up in the Air. I rewatched it this week, so I've now watched it minimum 20 times. And you may think to yourself, that seems like a waste. And then I may tell you that when I carry around literally a backpack full of stuff, and then I go home and I look at all of my stuff and say, my God, all this stuff would never fit in the backpack I carry around. Why wouldn't I get rid of all my stuff and be free as a bird? I'm free, Jerry, I'm free. Up in the Air is about someone who chooses freedom. It's about someone who chooses to live up in the air. It's about someone who travels for a living firing people. It's about someone who is robotic, has absolutely no feelings, does his job, does it well, and then realizes, wait a minute, I may have feelings. Wait a minute, I may be in love. Wait a minute, is someone doing to me what I always do to them? That can't be true. One of the great twists that you'll see in a movie, and I'm not talking like Seven, there's no head in a pail. This is, or a box, excuse me. It's not like what Jack was telling me before the show as we were prepping for another big show. David, you got to watch When We Were Liars because there's a big twist in the end. All right, now I'm ready for the show. Just kidding, Jack. I love when you do that to me at 6:48. Gets me focused and ready. Please watch Up in the Air. It's so good. It's my number 8. It may move up, Coca. All right, random number generator. Thank you. Press it next Thursday, because we're going to have a show, because it's a day that ends in Y that's not a weekend. What are we reviewing? Thank you, Coca. That's, I'm going to watch that again. Interstellar. Interstellar is my number 96 movie, and I will watch that by next Thursday. If you're looking for something to watch tonight, I've got 2 episodes left. I will watch them today. It's called Overcompensating. I'm going to review that tomorrow. It's a show that stars Benito Skinner. We'll get to it tomorrow. Overcompensating. The first 6 episodes were super quick and awesome, so I'm hoping the last 2 shine through. But we'll wait to see. Thank you again for yesterday, everybody. Wednesday's second hour are fun. It's a So You Want to Talk to Samson Wednesday. Reminder, we've got another So You Want to Talk to Samson next Wednesday. Please pick up the phone. Not now, but when we're done with the second hour, we have a great guest coming in for hour 2 here today because it's a Thursday. But 631-377-4869. Pick up the phone, leave a message, keep it under a minute. You may hear your voice. Maybe. Did you watch Ohtani yesterday? Coca has this thing with me that I'm trying to convince him that I've moved past. I was extremely, extremely cynical about Shohei Ohtani. He's right. I didn't think it was possible to be a middle-of-the-order hitter and to be a top-of-the-rotation starter. I'd never seen it in my career, and I'd seen thousands of players. My view was that all of the hype of being this two-way player, something's going to give. And then it's not that I took a victory lap, because I wouldn't do that on somebody's broken, torn ligament, but it was smart of me because Ohtani had Tommy John. In which case I was able to say to Coca, look, you can't do both. Then he came back from Tommy John, and I said to Coca, wait a minute, maybe he can do both. Then he had a second Tommy John, and I said to Coca, maybe he can't do both. Now he's back from the second Tommy John, which is impossible unless your name is Nathan Eovaldi. And he went 4 innings as they're building him up, and he's a dominant pitcher. He gave up 1 earned run as a starting pitcher, now going 4 innings. I thought it would happen in July. It finally happened August 7th, but we knew that they're building him up extremely slowly at the big league level, as though it's spring training, in order to keep his bat in the game. What I'm used to is the non-designated hitter in the National League, where your pitcher is hitting 9th every game, and it's a hole in the lineup if they can ever put the ball in play, if they can lay down a bunt. You're thanking your lucky stars, turn the lineup over to your top number 1 hitter, and that's it. When Shohei Ohtani's pitching, he led off last night. And remember, he's moved from leadoff, where he's been mostly now for the better part of a year, and then down in the 2-hole when they want to see if Betts should lead off. Whatever the case is, for a first-place team, Shohei Ohtani led off, and, wait for it, he went deep. Shohei Ohtani got his 1,000th career hit. Shohei Ohtani hit his 39th home run of the season, a 2-run homer, and he gave up 1 run. Now, forget that his bullpen lost the game, which they did, and that the Dodgers lost the game, which they did. Forget that, for the moment, that winning is all that matters, which it is. But I want you to take a moment and think about Shohei. I just want you to think about the fact that yesterday was the day, in my view, where my cynicism, it just left me. It's like I unpacked my backpack and just had the weight of the world off my shoulders, and I embraced the fact that I was wrong. I was really, really wrong. This guy's going to win the MVP every single year. 9 years in a row, he's going to win it for the Los Angeles Dodgers. Don't worry. He locked it up. Locked it. For those of you that thought that we should only focus on Ohtani, focus on what he did yesterday, and just blow right past what the Dodgers did, I'm with you. I love blowing past things that bother me and upsetting me and putting them down, procrastinate until it evaporates. I'm in for the whole package. I don't know if you do that, Coca. Procrastinate something till it evaporates, then all of a sudden you don't have to do it. That's like a Tuesday for me. But the Dodgers, I'm not sure that their issues are going to evaporate anytime soon. The fact that the Dodgers, who are still favored to win the World Series significantly, but you look at that team, and yes, they're good, but not the way we thought they were going to be. Not even close. And the injuries that they've dealt with, when's the last time? Do you remember the craziness of Roki Sasaki before he signed, before the season started? Do you have any recollection of when we said, oh, his agent's Joel Wolf, the same agent? Remember Stanton? We went through it. No? No one's remembering this? Wait, am I getting that wrong now, Coca? I'm having a complete brain melt. Who is Roki Sasaki's agent? Anybody? This can't be happening to me. We're live on air, and I'm having a complete synapse breakdown. This can't be age. This can't be drugs. This can't be fried eggs. I am picturing. It is Joel. Thank you very much. Yes. I didn't waste anybody's time. I had a moment. Am I not allowed doing a show with you for 2 hours every day, 5 days a week? Can't I just have a moment where my brain goes... So, Roki Sasaki, do you remember him? All the money he got? Remember that he was pitching for the Dodgers, that he started the season in Japan? Do you remember that he started a game as a rookie? One of the 2-game series, Dodgers, No recollection. Do you remember he got hurt and he hasn't pitched? And remember he's been out for 3 months? Well, guess what? Big day. He's ramping up because he's pain-free. Hallelujah. But you know what? What we try to do with young players, and you're seeing this, the Brewers are doing it right now with Mizorowski. Yes, don't worry. He hurt himself big time. He absolutely had to go on the injured list 100%. Give me a break. It's a bunch of horse hockey. Now, I'm all for the Phantom IL. You got to use it. You got to give guys a blow so they can be ready in October. Mizorowski, Brewers want him in October. Sasaki, do the Dodgers want him in October? Or is the fact that he had lower velocity, major shoulder pain, and that he was pitching way too many innings, was that real? Well, here we are 3 months later, and I got to tell you, that was no Phantom IL. But the fact that he's pain-free now, and the fact that he was able to tell us, I feel better about being able to throw harder, especially because I'm completely pain-free. Do you remember how his velocity had totally dropped and everyone said, what is going on here? He's not striking anyone out. He's walking a bunch of guys. And I thought that this guy, according to the scouts, was dialing it in like upper 90s. Wasn't the case. But when you have a bad shoulder, bad elbow, velocity dips. Now, shoulder pain free, velocity increases. Here's the problem. How long can that last? If you're the Dodgers front office, you're sitting down and you're mapping out the whole thing. You may think that we don't do this, but we do, I promise. We would map out the season of what we would want to happen, and then you adjust from there when what you want to happen doesn't happen. But it would be our dream to have 5 starting pitchers the whole year, but we have got a stable of 14, and we know the order in which we're going to call them to start games once starters start going down. They're mapping out Sasaki from now through November 1. They are figuring out how many innings he can go, whether or not he should be a starter, whether or not maybe they put him in the bullpen, whether or not he needs 20 minutes to warm up or 5 minutes. If he needs 20, they don't want to screw with his routine, so he's not a bullpen arm unless he can get himself going faster. I always had a concern about putting young players who were starters into the bullpen for the postseason, except I always did it. Don't forget that Dontrelle Willis, one of the great young starting pitchers, we put him right in the bullpen for the postseason. You got it, man. You got 3 minutes to warm up and get yourself in the game. Because we could win a World Series. We'll see what happens with him. I would say that Dave Roberts knows exactly what's going to happen because he sits with Andrew Friedman and says, all right, Andrew, what's going to happen? And Andrew says, all right, this is going to happen. He was asked about whether Sasaki could ever go into the bullpen, and he said, I'm going to hold on to that one. I do know we're going to take the 13 best pitchers. He's talking about the postseason roster. I've been a part of many postseason rosters, Dave Roberts said, so we're going to take the 13 best pitchers. How's that for an epiphany? When I put together a postseason roster, we tried to take the 13 worst pitchers, for sure. He said if Roki is part of that in some capacity, that'd be great. If he's not, then he won't be. Don't fall for it, folks. The Dodgers know what they're doing with Sasaki. Now, it may not work because he may get hurt or the plan may not actually come to fruition, but believe me, there's a plan. There's a plan for everything. There's a plan for pitchers, position players. There's even a plan for umpires. Word came out yesterday, and it was so good to see that Jen Pawol is going to be the first woman umpire to umpire a major league regular season game. She is being called up from the minor leagues. Yes, umpires get called up to the big leagues just like players do. You see, when there's a spring training for umpires, you put together umpire crews that consist of 4 people. But according to the collective bargaining agreement with the umpires, different than the players, believe it or not, umpires get vacations during the season. Whatever. So, when they get vacations, there's a hole in the crew. So, What Mike Hill does, who's in charge of all the umpires, he's got a stable of minor league umpires who become fill-ins at the big league level, either for vacation time or when there's an injury that is a big league umpire can't umpire because of injury. Then, the way we do with players, the umpires are ordered. Who's the first one to be called up? Second, third, fourth, fifth, etc. Jen Pawol has been around since 2016 in the minor leagues. It's been important to Mike Hill and Commissioner Rob Manfred to have a woman umpire. Why? Because how can it be that it's been this long? The NBA has had female referees forever. To me, it was always something we wanted, but to do it, you had to train. You had to get women to go to umpire school. Then you had to have a woman go through the process that the men do. There are no shortcuts to the big leagues. You've got to toil in the minor leagues, and you've got to be the best you can be. And then you've got to be better than everyone in your crew in the minor leagues. And that's what Jen Pawol has been. And she's worked her way up where? When the Marlins and the Braves face each other this weekend in Atlanta, they've got a doubleheader. She's going to work both ends of the doubleheader. Just on the bases, though, which is not nothing. But come Sunday, Jen Pawol will be calling balls and strikes. She will be the home plate umpire on Sunday, and history will be made. It'll be made Saturday, but when she calls balls and strikes, and my wish for her, and what I want for all female umpires, is I hope that she gets crushed by the internet. Hey, you missed 4 calls. Hey, that was a strike, not a ball. That was a ball. I wish I could touch my head and challenge because we need ABS. Why is that my wish, you say? God, you're wishing ill on her? No. I'm wishing normalcy on her. I'm wishing that we get to the point where a woman umpire is just part of the crew and it's not even worth mentioning. They've done that in the NBA. Remember, the NBA had its first female referee. Do you remember someone named Violet Palmer? She was the first referee in the NBA back in 1997. That's 28 years ago. The NFL had its first female umpire on the field back in 2012. I guess my view is this. Being a major league umpire, it's hard. And it doesn't just happen. It requires years and years, and baseball is finally bearing the fruits of its labor and of doing the right thing. What I'm hopeful for is the pipeline is deep and full, and that you will think of the name Jen Pawol as the trailblazer. But when you look at crews over the next 1 to 5 to 10 to 15 years, that having female umpires will just be part of the game. Congratulations, Jen. We'll be watching, and Monday we'll be criticizing, and you're welcome. Nothing personal pick of the day. How happy were you for our Nothing Personal pick of the day that you went with us and took the Nationals over the Athletics? You must have been thrilled when they had a walk-off, the former Padre, C.J. Abrams, and you said to yourself, wow, that's a great win. Now we're 104-99. Well, what do we do for an encore? Nothing Personal pick of the day presented by DraftKings. DraftKings, the crown is yours. We got a big game in a light slate tonight as the Reds take on the Pirates. And anytime Paul Skeens pitches, it is a must-watch game. The Pirates are playing for nothing. Spoiler, dog days of summer. Try to ruin someone else's season. Paul Skeens pitching for Cy Young. But they're going against the Reds, and the Reds are playing for October. The Reds are playing to catch the Mets and have an opportunity to gain a half a game as the Mets don't play as they travel to Milwaukee for a weekend series against the Brewers. Now, Paul Skeens, unhittable. But the Reds plus 143? That seems awesome. So, odds subject to change according to our friends, but The nothing personal pick of the day presented by DraftKings, the Cincinnati Reds plus 143 over the Pittsburgh Pirates and Paul Skeens. I've got a new plan, Coca, an absolute new plan. And I know people in baseball are watching, and I'm thankful. I really am. But I'm sick and tired of position players pitching. Sick of it. Even when it's a guy I know. Austin Nola pitched for the Rockies last night in the ninth inning, gave up 8 runs to Toronto. Toronto ended up scoring, wait for it, 20 runs yesterday. They beat the Rockies 20-1. The Rockies, with their record run differential, how fast they've been this bad, still on track to not be as bad as the White Sox last year. And the White Sox are praying to God that the Rockies please lose some more games. The Toronto Blue Jays scored 45 runs in their 3-game series in Colorado. That's a new club record. The Toronto Blue Jays had 63 hits in their 3-game series. 63 hits. Those numbers will go down in history. And do you know what won't? The fact that Austin Nola pitched the ninth inning and gave up 8 large. Plus 2 home runs. Well, including 2 home runs. Do you think that those stats count? Do you know what we used to do with the Marlins and it didn't work, but I wonder whether this is the new thing? When we had players who had bulk, great home runs, great runs batted in, great average, we would take out of the calculation what the player did against a position player when a position player was pitching. We couldn't get arbitrators to agree with us because the numbers are the numbers. Therefore, there are players getting paid to rake against position players. It's a travesty. Position players don't lose money by giving up runs in the ninth inning because they're offensive players. They're not pitchers. When they go to arbitration or free agency, never do the pitching stats come up. However, when a hitter gets hits off a position player, they get to count it as though they got it off a big league pitcher. We tried everything in our committees to avoid this. We wanted to do a little league mercy rule where the team that is down runs can choose if they want to lay down their king in the ninth inning. Do you know why the union doesn't want a mercy rule? Because the union can't have fewer at-bats and fewer innings pitched. The union cannot have stats that aren't fully bulked with 162 games times 9 innings. The union would in no way allow for any rule that would do anything. Do you remember after COVID with all the doubleheaders? Do you remember when it was 7-inning doubleheaders? Do you remember how happy we were back before pitch clock with 7-inning doubleheaders? And the union, that was a short-term yes, and now it's done. Do you remember when I tell you that the union going from 162 to 154 games is a no unless they get paid for 162 and figure out how to deal with stats? Do you remember the ghost runner rule? And the biggest issue we had is the union wanted to make sure that the pitcher would not get an earned run, but the hitter would get an RBI when the ghost runner scored. This is not a coincidence. This is all purposeful. Why do they do it? Well, they sit across the table from each other and they say, listen, position players pitching, whatever, it's just business. And they do plenty of business. We're going to take a break, Coca. When we come back, we have a guest. Mike Ryan is going to be here live because it's Thursday and I'm in Miami. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Nothing Personal. It is hour 2 on Thursday, August 7th, 2025. As you know, I'm in Miami. I've been here all week. Final day sitting in for Mr. Lebitard, and I've been lucky enough to do shows all week with Mike Ryan, and we are lucky enough to have him as our Thursday guest early. You're an hour and 7 minutes before Dan's show. Thank you for coming in early today, Mike.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Great week of shows so far. Feedback not really reflecting that.
What does that mean?
I don't know what it is. Well, I have a feeling I know what it is. I think very recently, well, throughout your entire history of our show, you've been positioned as a villain. It's worked. It's kind of one note, but it works for us. That's the groove. And then when that's the expectation, people find you endearing and you're able to cut through that. But over the last few months, you've been positioned as like the Thanos of our universe, like a mega villain. And it's been harder to cut through that. I think we've done a really good job with the dynamic. Billy and I have been comedically synced, having a go at you, kind of layering a show beneath a show. I've really enjoyed the week of shows. I don't think that I think a lot of the feedback that we receive is not good faith feedback. I think it's a lot of people that just see your face, decide they either are not going to give it a try, maybe haven't listened to our show for a while, and then
or they are giving it a try. And they listen, hate watching.
Yeah,
I'm gonna take it.
Oh, no doubt. No, I don't mean to say like every bit of bad feedback that we get is just a lie. No, there's plenty of people that hate you, and I'm grateful that they still think that you're going to turn it around for them. I was in that camp when I was producing the Lebitard show. I hated the segment for a very long time. Then it went away, and I was happy about that. And then he came back, and the baggage had kind of. There was some distance between that, and you got a little bit more endearing too.
Well, thank you. That's my goal. But no, my goal is to do good shows with you, to do good shows every day on Nothing Personal. And something happened on your show yesterday. I thought we were this close to getting a scoop from you. I thought we had it with Messi and his 3-year deal, potential 3-year deal. It's a big deal. He's a free agent. I would say that his turn at Inter Miami has been hugely successful for the franchise. Their valuation has grown. The interest has grown. They're an internationally known team now. I would say there's not one negative thing. There's a new stadium opening in Miami next year, but he's a free agent. And so keeping him, how important, if Messi leaves Inter Miami, is that a huge setback for MLS?
It's hard to say. Yeah, optics-wise, it's a huge setback, although they just made a massive international signing yesterday that globally may have not the same impact because Messi's arguably the greatest soccer player of all time, the greatest superstar of all time. But Son going to LAFC is a massive, massive signing. What'd you make of the press conference where he admitted, not my first choice, brutally honest?
I loved that, but what I was thinking about was mostly Beckham.
Okay.
When that happened. Now, are you saying that it's a bigger deal with him than it was with Beckham?
No, I'd rank. I think that you can make a sound argument that Son to LAFC is the third biggest signing in MLS history.
You have Messi 1, Beckham 2?
Messi, I think you could
Beckham
argue
one was big.
Yeah, I think you could argue Beckham was bigger than Messi, but that's a debate for another day. We know who 1 and 2 are. 3, I think, could be Son because Son taps into an Asian market that has eluded MLS quite a bit, and he is if you're Korean, that's your guy. I mean, if you follow Mina and her family, they've been all about Son for the better half of a decade. Mina's got to be thrilled being out in Los Angeles to see him. I think it's going to be hugely impactful. I think that jersey's going to go triple platinum. But I think it's a huge signing. But if Messi leaves, is it a stain on MLS optics-wise? Depends on where he leaves to. If he leaves to a childhood club, I think people can understand that. If he decides to take a cash grab at Saudi Arabia, I think that would reflect poorly because he eschewed advances from them, and then that would mean that he had regret that he didn't do that earlier.
Or he didn't make the money that he thought he'd make. Because remember, when he joined Inter Miami, there were so many other streams of revenue that he was going to tap, and we have no indication. All we heard from Garber is what's happening sort of with Apple TV and the Apple subs, but we really don't know for sure what Messi is collecting.
Messi is making a ton of money, and it definitely tapped into an American marketing base. He has beer sponsorships, and he's got an energy drink sponsorship. He's always had sponsorships, but they've been more bountiful. He has the Lowe's sponsorship. A Lowe's sponsorship with Messi does not exist without the MLS partnership. It just doesn't. I think it's been very financially beneficial to Messi. I think he likes the lifestyle here. If I had to handicap this, and I'm not, I don't like making predictions and that being positioned as news. The news is Inter Miami feels very good about the offer that they have in front of Messi. Messi's been happy here. They feel good about it. If I had to make a prediction, I think Messi does re-up with Inter Miami. But this isn't like the last time where the news was that Inter Miami was a very serious contender when there were very reputable reporters saying that he was going to go back to PSG and that Inter Miami wasn't really being considered. There was basically weekly scoopage that, no, Inter Miami feel very good about this. The news was that Inter Miami felt very good about where they're positioned. Now, everyone knows that.
So, in your view, is Garber involved in this? Because he had to have been involved when Messi started, because you can't make a deal with the league without Don Garber being involved. But now that it's a re-up, is it all the same terms that you think that he'll still keep getting a piece of subs and there's still league involvement, or is this now a straight salary deal?
David, he's not going back. Like, he's not going to take a step back in his next deal. I think his riches only grow from here.
But he's past his prime, no? Or is he?
He's still the
he
very best player in the league.
He scored 2 goals per game. I think Coke and I had it like 5 straight games. It was some record. It was insane.
I mean, LeBron's still very, very good. LeBron's not best player in the league good anymore, but he's still very, very good. A past his prime LeBron is still a massive commodity worth
$51.6 million.
Messi is past his prime, but he is also the very best player in MLS. Head and shoulders, I think.
Wow.
So it's, to answer your question, is Don Garber involved? This is Moss family spearheading this, and recent history would show us that MLS kind of takes Inter Miami's lead and figures it out from there.
Yeah, Coca was just whispering in my ear that Garber had said recently, and I didn't see this, Coca, and I'm sure you did, Mike, that he has no plans to come to Miami because he doubts that Messi even wants to speak to him.
That's how it goes. I think that, look, you had your own experience and dealings with the Moss family. Different sport, though. In this sport, they're not the richest ownership group at all, despite the valuation going sky high. You know the difference between valuation and being cash rich. Credit to them, because they've been trying to push this league, and they've been the ones making the splashy signings. They've faced a lot of adversity, a lot of doubt. I'm sure several times over the last 10 years, you've doubted whether or not they would exist, whether or not they would get the stadium deal, certainly whether or not they'd get Messi, and they've succeeded. At every single turn, they've pushed through. They live that motto, freedom to dream. They really do. They want to push this league to the next level by making more aggressive signings, by essentially doing away with the salary cap, or at least really restructuring it. The DP rule and the TAM rule and the GAM rule. It's MLS has a whole sick rule book that, you know, if you follow it letter to the law, maybe Inter Miami shouldn't even be fielding the roster that they have right now. The Moss family feels like this league needs to be more aggressive, and they put their money where their mouth is. Believe it or not, some of the richer owners that are some of the legacy owners that want to have this salary cap structure in place, a more sound business model.
So for you personally, when you're watching Inter Miami, they qualified for the knockout round just last night in the League Cup. They're going to be that.
David, you could argue that's the greatest achievement in North American, in American club soccer, them making it to the knockout round of that tournament.
So when you watch that, are you a bigger fan of Inter Miami or a bigger fan of Miami Hurricanes? What excites you?
Miami Hurricanes, no question.
Oh, it's not even close.
No, Miami Hurricanes are my number one passion in athletics.
Yes.
Nothing.
I didn't mean like your family.
No, I mean in athletics, nothing comes close to the Miami Hurricanes. It's Miami Hurricanes first, and there's a wide gulf. It used to be the Browns, but when the Browns exited the equation for me, I just took that passion for the Browns and doubled up on the Miami Hurricanes.
So this is now year 4 under Cristobal? Is that where we are now?
Yes.
And what is going in? I think the preseason poll, coaches poll,
Top 10.
top 10. Well, number 10, top 10. 10 is 10. What is your view there?
I think it's been successful. Look, they lost 2 games by a total of 9 points last year. They led 21-0 at Syracuse. They got to make it to Charlotte. It's hugely embarrassing. They've only been to Charlotte once. Now, one time they did make it. They did qualify for Charlotte, but they self-imposed a punishment. Ironically enough, it was going to be FSU versus Miami, the title game that the ACC made this whole deal with 20 plus years ago to get, and they've only had one opportunity to have it, and then Miami self-penalized because of the Nevin Shapiro stuff. SMU runs into the ACC in their first year and makes it to Charlotte. It's hugely embarrassing with a former Miami Hurricanes offensive coordinator and a bunch of former Miami Hurricanes players in the portal. Now, if they played head-to-head, does that go poorly for SMU? I think so. I think Miami was a better team than SMU last year, but the fact remains they've made it in their first year to Charlotte as many times as Miami has made it to Charlotte in 20-plus years in the ACC. Miami needs to get to Charlotte. Miami needs to get to the ACC championship game. They need to get to the CFP. You have a recruiting-based head coach that has shown you proof of concept year-over-year improvement. Year 1, lose by a little. Year 1, lose by a lot. Year 2, lose by a little. Year 3, win by a little. Year 4, win by a lot. That's the formula for a recruiting-based head coach that needs to come in and basically wipe the slate clean.
But it's got to be there's some correlation to NIL. I mean, Carson Beck comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Carson Beck comes in.
A lot of bad reporting on what he's making.
What's he making?
I'm not going to say that. That's not my business to put out there.
Well, what's the bad reporting?
There are insane numbers out there. The 4.7 million was reported out there. It's not that.
And your view is that it is insanely reporting too high.
Yeah.
So it's far below 4.7. Why would it be insane to spend 4.7 on a quarterback to replace the number 1 pick overall who left?
I'm not here to argue that. You may think that that's a fair price. There are plenty of people that do. And if Miami makes it to the CFP, I think it's, bargain. But that's not the number. And a lot of this is other schools trying to get out ahead of the news cycle. They don't want to admit schools like Oregon and Georgia, who have won plenty of recruiting battles head-to-head with Miami. If they lose a recruit to Miami, they put out to their beat writers, the national writers, that it has to be NIL. It boggles the mind that Miami would have more money than Oregon or Georgia. They don't. Do they have competitive offers? Can they match? Yeah. Are they judicious with certain recruits that they prioritize, and maybe they do have the most aggressive offer? It's not super transparent. Who knows? But Miami doesn't win recruiting battles because of NIL. It's a contributing factor, but head-to-head recruiting battles, Miami wins recruiting battles because they have a maniac at head coach who was built for the sicko world that we're in.
So different than the pro leagues, I guess, where correct word gets out about the signings of free agents and what the deals are. The union gets it, the league has it, someone leaks it, and you get actually what contracts are. Do you believe there should be full transparency?
No.
How come?
No. Well, when the ADs and the head coaches have full transparency with their offers, then the players can too.
Well, there's no transparency of offers in big league sports in the NBA free agency. There's no transparency of offers, but there's transparency of deals.
Right. When the deals get through, I do think that when a deal gets signed, there should be a database. If the players are allowed a union and that's collectively bargained and they decide to make that part of the arrangement, cool with me. But you see the Ohio State AD has said this, Nick Saban has said this, people in government have said this. We want a fair market value. We want a fair market. We want transparency when it comes to these offers.
Free agency.
But they want something different for the kids than what they afford themselves. Jimmy Sexton can pick up a phone and say, "Hey, I got a $15 million offer from Tennessee. What are you going to do here?" The response from the school that's trying to acquire a Jimmy Sexton client isn't like, "Well, hold on, let's put this in the database. Let me vet whether or not this offer is real." They have to do their sleuthing. They have to make some calls to see whether or not they're getting played. But there is a gamesmanship
That's
involved.
like the big leagues, though, Mike.
Right.
The exact
right.
same
No.
thing happens to us.
I understand. But they want to make different rules for the kids. For the athletes that are bringing in the revenue. No. You're not afforded the ability to have stalking horses and inflate offers. You're not allowed to do what ADs and head coaches do. You get an offer, it gets put in a database. This is what they want. It gets put in a database. The offer is the offer. By the way, there are going to be schools that try to circumvent that because the NCAA has basically said Big Ten and SEC, you're in charge of enforcement.
They hired a guy from Major League Baseball to be in charge of that. He was a former head of the Department of Investigations. I don't know if you read about that.
The NCAA is a friggin' joke.
So is your view the NCAA is on its way out? And so are you a power,
Eventually.
So you're a Power 4 conference guy that the future is the 4 conferences, they'll rule the roast. So you're on the skipper side of that.
I do think that it will become Super League. That's where we're headed. This is patently absurd what they're trying to do to these kids. It's not as unfair as them not getting paid at all, but it's the mentality there that they really treat these athletes less than. And they think that...
Talk me through that. They treat them less than because they don't have the ability to be in a true free market, or there's a salary cap, or they have to stay in a hotel room. Tell me what you mean.
Look, I'm not saying this to be provocative. There's a plantation mentality when it comes to college athletics. And now a lot of the people in the NCAA and a lot of the administrators who don't want to take pay cuts themselves, they come with the attitude like, you got your money now, shut up. You have some level of freedom. Be satisfied with that. We're still going to restrict your freedom. It's not going to be free. You're not going to have the same kind of opportunities that administrators have. But why aren't you happy with this? We gave you a big payday, a big settlement, not negotiated by a CBA. It was just handed down. Basically hush money. And you have people with backgrounds that don't have generational wealth that are happy to sign whatever they can to get the money that they never counted on. But that's not fair. For them to be the only people in athletics to have a database in which an offer's there, and this clearinghouse with NIL, fair market value. Just who decides what fair market value is?
Generally the market.
Exactly. They don't want to do that. You're going to have some bureaucrat somewhere say like, oh, your deal with such and such modeling agency. That's, that sounds like $25K to me. That's not capitalism. You have the most aggressive capitalist enterprise on the planet in the NCAA, one of. And they want to apply socialist policies to the people that are bringing in the revenue. And that is absurd on the surface.
When there are bans around what employees make, so there are databases, there's information that is shared. A producer of a morning show that has the following ratings and the following audience generally makes between X and Y. Mm-hmm. Do you think that the people in charge of radio shows should have that information as they're making offers to producers?
They do have that information. Agents talk.
I'm asking, do you think they should? Because they all have it.
There is a sleuthing. There is a sleuthing that is done even at the collegiate level.
There are actual documents that come out. When you run a 501c3, you can find out what percentile you're paying your employees. Mm-hmm. The executive director, the head of development, and you can get literally in all businesses on Wall Street.
Yeah,
it's the same thing.
You're cutting a little close to the bone here because I was at a big corporation at ESPN that had me pigeonholed as an executive producer, and they had rules that executive producers make this much, and salary cap structures around what they thought that position was. We're unlike any show in the history of radio. I wasn't your typical executive producer. I did so much more on the bureaucratic side, on the talent side. And yet I had to be pigeonholed into a structure that ESPN saw fit because they never really saw anybody like me coming. And I know that it sounds like we just have a different show. Billy was different than the salary cap structure that they had for other producers. We're a true ensemble. So I think your value is what the market dictates. And just because someone has a copy-paste structure, and even if they're a name brand and an industry leader like ESPN, that doesn't stop someone else, other visionaries out there, to see more potential, to actually recognize what it is that you do, and actually come up with an offer that represents your true value, which is an offer
true
in hand.
Value to them. Because
that's the true value, period.
Well, your true value to Dan may be different than your true value to a different show.
Right,
and I'm
talking about offers in hand.
But if you have it for the college athletes, do they not have the ability to go out and get an offer, an NIL offer from a school? You say Oregon and Miami go head to head.
A lot.
And so if Miami values the player differently, why are they not allowed to give that player more?
Well, I know the rules have changed on this. Part of your recruiting pitch is you don't actually say, you come here, we give you this much money. You hold previous examples of like your track record. These are the NIL partners that we have. This is what the collective does. You do signings. The Canes Connection, the collective that I donate to and I'm a part of, we have a lot of autograph signings at the team stores. We send a lot of our athletes out to places for autograph signings, and that's how you justify it.
So you don't talk money with players when they're being recruited?
No, I don't. No, I don't.
Are you going to say
No, I mean, it's
today
patently absurd. It's patently absurd to believe that there are programs out there that don't talk money. Yes, they absolutely do talk financials.
And what's wrong? What's wrong with that? That's how players. How do you?
I'll never cop to it, but yeah,
You will never cop to the fact where every other school will acknowledge this.
no, they don't.
Nobody
they
will
shouldn't.
tell you that they talk about money with
it's
players.
It's talked about, and the NCAA doesn't enforce this stuff for several years. I do think the rules have changed on this, but you can't actually use NIL to entice an athlete to come over to your school. But we all know that that's absurd.
Because you want to be able to do that, don't you? That's what you're talking about, a free market system. A free market system is you using money to entice
Here's what I want.
players.
I want everybody playing by the same rules. Genuinely. Miami got
Fair.
back into the game because NIL afforded Miami to play by the rules. Look at the history of Alabama and all the families that have moved from Hawaii to Tuscaloosa. Look at all the recruits from
Seems like a downgrade.
Look at all the families from South Florida that all of a sudden the dad has a job at a car dealership in Alabama. Okay? Miami was not afforded the same type of opportunities that SEC schools were. A lot of that's Miami's own doing. A lot of that is a persecution complex that is warranted, by the way. Okay? Outsized reaction, Charles Robinson pieces and whatnot. Miami could not get in the game. NIL afforded Miami an opportunity to play by the rules and get back in the game. I would love for there to be a universal standard that everybody has to adhere to that is enforced, because I believe that Miami, a tradition-rich program, being here in paradise, having coaches that have a proven track record of development. Say what you will about Mario Cristobal. He turned a guy that was a fifth-round draft pick at best in Cam Ward to the number 1 overall draft pick. You have proof of concept along the offensive line. There was Jackson Cantwell, the number 1 offensive lineman in the country. He chose Miami over Georgia and I believe Oregon. And everyone just assumed the narrative was out there. And he, to his credit, was out there trying to say, I haven't put any of this out there. The narrative was, man, Miami's offering him, an insane NIL deal. It was not the case. We had a very competitive offer. Jackson Cantwell came to Miami because he saw everything that I spoke about. He saw an offensive line coach in Alex Mirabal that can get guys to the next level. He saw a recent track record with Georgia. I would love a free and fair market where everybody's playing by the same rules, because I think Miami benefits from that. What I don't like is Miami having different rules, because the Big Ten and SEC are going to enforce the rules, and you're going to have things that seem above board, but the cheaters will always find a way, especially in the SEC and the Big Ten. They will always find a way to circumvent the rules. If they're in charge of enforcing the rules, they're certainly going to circumvent and know how to.
Well, it's the inmates running the asylum.
Precisely.
And so,
but it's the inmates only at the Big Ten and the SEC. If I'm not a part of that crew, they're going to look to crack down on me because we affect their bottom dollar. Because everybody. And there's stories that I heard about Nick Saban. This is all secondhand. This is not what I was told directly. But there was a famous story that I heard about Nick Saban crunching film with a coach that is now on Miami staff. Piece that together. He was preparing for the Miami game. He's like, and he pointed to that U on that helmet is, if these guys ever get back, we're all in deep crap. We're all in deep crap. They know if they all have to play by the same rules, why wouldn't you want to play down here?
I thought that the NCAA was doing that, actually, and that's what the enforcement is trying to make it universal. But they do have to acquiesce to the power of the Power Four, and there have been a bunch of announcements recently about committees and how it's going to be overweighted.
They've outsourced everything. They're just going to sit back and collect revenue, and maybe they'll bring something to the table when it comes to non-revenue sports enforcement and setting up these
They're trying
tournaments.
to keep their jobs.
Yes,
That's
but
pretty much
they're
it.
just trying to keep the stream of money coming for as long as they can, and I do think that they will for about a half a decade more before we go into full-on Super League and private equity.
Super leagues have been tried. They tried that over in the EPL. Didn't quite happen.
Yeah, well, honestly, Americans should take note from what they do over across the pond. I mean, you increase the price of a soda 50 cents, and you have a full on revolt on your hands. You have people with, and they have,
I've seen it.
and they give in. Look at there was a multi-billion-dollar deal with the Super League. You have protesters showing up to the stadium. It goes away inside of 48 hours. Over here, the American consumer is so beat down by fees, and this is just the way that it is. And we saw it with the Club World Cup. FIFA sets these outrageous prices because they know the American consumer, we can just bully them. They should take a lesson from what happens over in Europe.
We're out of time.
That's a shame. I could talk about this forever.
I mean, I would have liked it, but you got a show to do, and I'll be joining you not 42 minutes. I'll be there. Thank you for doing this.
Thanks for having me.
It's Mike Ryan, producer extraordinaire from the Dan Le Batard Show. We have an update. That's it. You can go.
I'm not gonna.
You absolutely can go. I know we're live.
walk through the shot.
You absolutely can because you have a show to do. You have pre-production to do. Now, if you want to hear the next segment, I'm happy to have you
just
hear
gonna
it.
vibe out to my Bluetooth.
We have an update that is staggering. Yesterday, we talked to you about smelling salts, and I did an entire thing where I was telling you that they will find a way. There he goes, Mikey, if you're watching this on YouTube. That was a really great outboard that I just did. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're back. If you're listening to this, you have no idea what just happened, except we're live and it just happens. I told you that teams are going to find a way. Players are going to find a way. You need smelling salts. What are they going to do? The sniff markers? It took one day for the NFL to release a statement and the players union to release a statement. Hold on. There's a bit of a misunderstanding, Phil Collins. It turns out that smelling salts are not banned. All of the craziness of yesterday, I'd like you to rewind and hear the truth. Teams can't supply smelling salts to players. This has to be my favorite. It's when we were told in baseball, you can't supply tobacco to your players anymore. No more chewing tobacco. So you know what the players did? They got the clubbies to get the chewing tobacco. Or they went and brought the chewing tobacco on their own. Wink, wink. Where do we get the chewing tobacco? Oh, if you go into this room 10 steps down the hall away from the clubhouse, make a left turn, open the door, it's a supply closet. Right behind the Major League Baseball baseballs that are being rubbed with dirt to be gamers. Just under there's going to be another box. Open that box and wink, wink, you may just find something. Then, if you bring it into the clubhouse and you don't put it in your back pocket so we can't see the circular tin, then you're good to go. It was a joke. Smelling salts. It's going to be the same thing. I got another one. Teams being told you can't supply any foreign substance to your pitchers. Okay, we're happy not to do that. Give me a small break. Can you imagine telling an NFL team, no smelling salts? So we're going to have the players do their own smelling salt, have them bring in a bucket of ammonia, a little bit of baking soda, a little bit of a Jolly Rancher Pop, and a Tootsie Roll Pop, put them all together, stir it up, and then sniff it out of a glue container like your Lloyd Bridges. That's not how it's going to be. The way it's going to be is that the teams are going to have the smelling salts. They're going to be the accredited, the right smelling salts because they're going to be administered by the training staff. They're going to do it behind closed doors. They're going to do it off camera. They're going to do it under the tent. Players are not going to Costco and buying smelling salts. It makes no sense. But we do have an update. They're not banned. Give me a break. I got a thought here on joint practices. Did you see the video yesterday? There's a video of a joint practices in the NFL during, I was going to say spring training, but it's during training camp. When you're in pads or you're in shorts and pads or you're in full pads and you call on another team and you do what's called a joint practice. A joint practice is when two teams, instead of having the first team go against the second team, so you have teammates lining up on the defensive line against teammates on the offensive line, you hike the ball, and then they hit each other, and that creates issues, injuries, problems we'll talk about. What you do is you get a joint practice, so it's a different team that gets to play defense while you play offense, and then play offense while you play defense. And what happens is they end up fighting all the time. Yesterday, the New England Patriots were in a fight with the Washington Commanders, and the coach pulled a Jeff Van Gundy. For those of you who don't know, Jeff Van Gundy went on the court in the middle of a fight between the Heat and the Knicks, grabbed onto Alonso Mourning's leg the way I grab onto a new roll of toilet paper after a great dinner. And it was weird. And I was a Knicks fan. I don't want my coach in a scrum. I don't want my coach hanging on to Alonso Mourning's leg. But in football, these cats are different. Mike Vrabel gets involved in the scrum. He's bleeding from his cheek. And his players have just said, this is it. We are golden. Chris, you win. The Pats are going to win the AFC East. That's how good they are, because their coach, in a joint practice, when a fight breaks out between a bunch of players who are out of their minds, that causes closeness. If I'm running the NFL and I'm trying to be as careful about my reputation as David Stern was with the NBA, and I've got a desire not to compete with the NBA or Major League Baseball and to be Apple and Google, and I'm announcing unbelievable deals with ESPN and all the other things I'm doing, here's what I really don't want. I don't want video anywhere on ESPN or on any network showing a coach in any way getting involved in a fight between teams. And above that, I'd be super happy if the teams wouldn't fight in general. So I'm going to institute a rule, which is, let's not do joint practices, joint scrimmages, because as it is, we're going to get rid of preseason games. We've already acknowledged that preseason games are a joke. We've acknowledged that none of the starters play unless you're Aaron Rodgers, and you say, of course, I'd be happy to play whatever my coach wants, and I'll be there for you. That's what Aaron Rodgers said. But generally, you get the Shedeur Sanders of the world starting for the Cleveland Browns in the preseason games, because what we're headed to is 18 regular season games. There is no reason in football. It's not like baseball where you have 30 spring training games. You've got to get pitchers with innings, and you've got to get at-bats. In football, they don't want these players doing preseason because you've only got a certain number of hits that the human brain can take or that your body can take in general. The soreness from playing a football game is likened to being run over by a car. The reason why it's hard to play 3 games in 11 days or even 2 games in 6 days, whatever the case is when you're on a short week, is that the body is not built to play the brand of football that we all have come to expect and desire. So for players to play this brand of football, it requires them to be almost of a different mindset. You have to be a little bit cuckoo and a little bit reckless. And if you think that that is something that just gets turned on, it doesn't. That sort of mental existence, that is something that exists in your life, off the field, on the field, despite what some players may tell you, where they can just show up to work and be an absolute speedy demon who hits so hard that no one could withstand it, and then go home and play coochie coochie coo with your children. Are you not understanding the correlation between the amount of domestic violence we see, the amount of rage we see, the amount of rage we see off the field, on the field? That correlation exists because they are playing the sport that we're begging them to play, that we are paying so much money for them to play in a league that is worth so much money. Why? Because we love the violence. The thing is, when you own a team or you are running the league, you got to really be careful. Because if you go too far and all of a sudden the violence turns people off because it looks like it's outside of the game, like fights that'll take place, or the pushing, the shoving, the face mask twisting, coaches joining and bleeding, all of a sudden your fan base, your sponsors, the networks, they look at that and they say, too far. What a hard position for the NFL to be in, or for any of you, for any of us to be in, when you're asked to play a certain part, and then you play that part well, and then you are criticized for the very part that you play that you were asked to play to start with. Imagine how crazy that is, and the mixed message that that is when you coach your player, hey, I need you to be X. Hold on, don't be 2X. Except if you're 3X, you're going to get a big contract. But it's the little gray part in the middle that you have to really legislate against. What's the issue there? It's about losing control. And I watch these joint scrimmages, these joint practices, and I realize that no one's in control. So I can't change the way the game is played if I'm Roger Goodell. It's been too good. Therefore, I'm going to do some marginal changes. A marginal change would be changing the rules that exist around joint scrimmages and joint practices. And for me, I'm getting rid of them, period. Now, of course, if, in fact, the Patriots go on and win the AFC East, Coca, who is favored in the AFC East? I'd have to assume it's the Buffalo Buffs. How can it not be? Any case, then I'll go back and say, all right, this worked. I want to give some attention right now to Teddy Bridgewater. We didn't cover this, Coca, when Teddy Bridgewater was a high school coach here in Florida, and he got in big, big trouble. And you remember that he is a former player, and the reason why he's in the news is that he's back in the NFL as a quarterback with the Buccaneers. But when he was the coach, it was Northwestern High, I believe, was the school in Florida, Coca. He got in trouble because he was giving items to his high school kids. And those items were food. Those items were Uber rides. Those items were the equivalent of 3 hot meals, a recovery truck, because playing football is so impossible. And Miami Northwestern ended up suspending him for these actions. What bothered me is when I found out what he had done, where he paid $14,000 out of his own pocket, where he had a camp for players, his own players, where he served them 3 hot meals that they may not have otherwise gotten. When I found out that he got them clothing and spent about $10,000 in clothing. When I found out that he was helping them recover and it was about $1,300 a week. When I found out that these were the amounts of money and realized that these public schools don't allocate that money to take care of the players, yet expect them, and this is not a private prep school where the football team is looked at as really cool by the 5'2" Jewish 7th graders. I'm talking about a football team where, wow, these guys have a chance to go pro. You have a responsibility to have a football program when you've got players who are that good that takes care of these players from the first minute they enter your program. And if we are going to have a system where a coach who has the financial means to go out of budget to do something, I ask you this. Have you spoken to your teachers recently? A teacher of your kids, if you have kids? Do you have any idea the amount of money that teachers spend out of pocket during the course of a year because the budgets aren't there in public or private schools? Are you aware that public school teachers buy supplies, they buy food, and all sorts of things for their kids who otherwise wouldn't have the opportunity to have that sort of educational experience? Do you think these teachers get raises for that? No. Do they get paid back? No. But do they get suspended? No. It's almost expected. Why is it that we have no interest in taking care of an athlete and suspending someone who, by the way, they won the state title in 2024? We're talking about one of the best programs in one of the best states for high school football, and doing something that a nameless, faceless teacher of 4th grade science will do for the kids. And we turn the other way for that, But when it's a revenue generating, fame generating, highlight generating program, we say, that's it, you have to be suspended. I find it to be completely unfair. So, I have a solution. I'm not just going to present to you things that I think are wrong. I like giving proposals, like get rid of the joint scrimmages. Here's a proposal. I would like a budget. I would like it to be part of a budget, and if it changes class size, if it changes what happens with teachers, if it changes what offerings are made with electives, I understand that when you take from Peter to pay Paul, Peter suffers. I get it. But when you are a school that is actually competing for state titles, you've got to treat your football coach in the same way that you would treat your teacher. So, to do it, I want a budget. Now, do I think that every school should have the same budget? Absolutely not. I am all for big market high schools and small market high schools. I am perfectly fine with certain high schools competing for the state championship every year and certain high schools never having a shot. I am also fine with certain schools getting the best recruits out of middle school than other schools. You can extrapolate where my difference is with Mike Ryan on whether or not it should be a level playing field or not in college and how that should work. All of that said, if you create and are forced to create a budget, and that budget has a collar, meaning it has to be more than X but less than Y, where you are in that band is up to you. If you're Miami Northwestern, you are going to be high up there. That budget should exist, but when you've got a coach, a famous coach, a rich coach, and you just get lucky enough to get him, and that coach says to you, I'm not changing who I am because of the rules. I've got a big heart. I get it from my mom. I was once these kids. I know what it's like to be in their shoes. We're going to not tolerate that? It's the opposite. We should be encouraging that. We should need more Teddy Bridgewaters. We should have more sponsorships. We should have more money flowing in to help kids who can't help themselves. We're doing it in college. We certainly are doing it in the pros. We've got 19 and 20-year-old kids as professional athletes. We're doing it in non-major sports when you can have 15 and 16-year-olds playing professional soccer. We can be better. And as far as I'm concerned, Teddy Bridgewater got a raw deal. Now, Coca, where is he with the Buccaneers on the depth chart? Is he going to be their starter, or is Mayfield their starter? He's not going to be the starter, so he may not play. But he was still signed. I don't think he can coach and play. I hope the next coach of Miami Northwestern takes care of the kids the way he did. I want to do a quick NBA thing. I know it's not NBA season, but something came up yesterday that truly did strike me, and I want you to think about it just a little bit. There was a transaction in the NBA with the Boston Celtics. They have a new owner. And remember that the old owner is still going to be the governor. It's like a step transaction. He's going to hold on for 3 to 5 years. And the Celtics, it was a huge transaction. It was like $6 billion. And everyone was so excited until the Lakers went for $10 billion and enterprise valuation. And just the numbers are the numbers are the numbers. Do you remember a conversation that we had about aprons and about the collective bargaining agreement in the National Basketball Association and how destructive it is to an organization to be in the second apron? I think you do. And I think you remember me telling you that teams aren't going to live in that second apron, which means that it's having the exact result that it should have. It is acting as the top of the cap. In a salary cap sport, there is still the ability to get over the salary cap. There's all sorts of rules about it, but you want to have in place a top of the top. The theory is that if you win, then you can excuse irresponsibility. You can excuse fiscal irresponsibility because winning will increase the value of your team. Winning will do something that makes operating at a loss every year tolerable. I've never been a fan of that concept, and I've done it. Operating at a loss stinks. Increasing the value of your team, thinking that covers it. I've told you 1,000 times, I don't love it. It's not smart. Done it, don't love it. You know, the Boston Celtics were a team that were basically the San Diego Padres of the NBA. They were unbelievably irresponsible. They had this huge amount of tax that they had to pay. And do you remember what we told you is that when Jason Tatum got hurt, and you remember he tore his Achilles, everyone out there in the media was saying, oh, they're now going to get responsible. They're going to give up, and they're going to cut their salaries and cut their tax bill. And what we talked about is it didn't matter what happened to Jason Tatum. It wasn't sustainable what the Celtics were doing. You can't keep everyone. You can't have a payroll of $540 million in the NBA. I don't care what the media deals are. That cannot be your cost of players. Well, the Boston Celtics, after Jason Tatum got hurt, have cut $301 million off their payroll. $301 million, a combination of players they've gotten rid of, Porzingis and Holiday, etc., free agents they didn't sign, Luke Cornett, trades they've made. $301 million. What is your view of that? Is your view to compliment them on being responsible? Is it your view that, hey, without Jason Tatum, they don't have a shot, therefore, why not completely cut the payroll? But when you trade assets, you can only trade assets once. You don't get them back when Tatum's back healthy again. Don't worry, we'll find younger players, better players, cheaper players. Or is your view that what the Celtics did was with complete indifference toward where they were in the Eastern Conference, where they were in terms of injury, because the new owner came in, he looked at the financials when he bought the team, and he said, well, I'm in at $6 billion. Governor or no governor, we cannot sustain this sort of loss because it was an operating loss at those numbers. Therefore, we're going to come in and make changes. Do you think that the existing governor, Wyc Grousbeck, who is still the governor, who's the one who added all of these players, who signed all of these deals, and then cashed out, do you think that he had a say in whether or not the new owner was going to have all these losses? Well, I've got a surprise to you as to how this works. The surprise is that all these step transactions that you're reading about, whether it's Mark Walter or the Chisholm family in Boston, and you thinking to yourself, or Blitzer in Cleveland with the Cleveland Guardians, and you think to yourself, oh, they just sit there. They do nothing. That's not the case. That's like saying that A-Rod and Mark Lowry did nothing while they were in the middle of their step transaction with the Timberwolves, where they ended up taking over after that big arbitration. When you get into ownership and you've got the path to take over, you also have the responsibility and the contractual rights to be involved in the operation. Why? Because it's your money. Even if you don't have a seat at the governor's table in the NBA, even if you're not the control person in Major League Baseball, you are the one who is taking over. So you need to be in control of what the asset looks like. There have to be guardrails about how things work. What does the public think about it? I would assume you don't care. I would assume whichever owner's making a decision, you are unhappy to see the Celtics do a reset like this. And my view is it should have been expected. That's like saying that you're going to be unhappy when Cleveland wakes up and realizes they can't stay in the second apron for more than a year because it's absurd. Or when a baseball team realizes that while they've added at the deadline and signed all these free agents, eventually they're going to have to pay to have that free agent traded to another team. Eventually they're going to have to bring the payroll down because their window's going to close. I would assume that you recognize that it's the same thing in every sport, and that your desire to have your team be different, or your owner be different, or I've got the richest owner, I've got the smartest owner, we're signing players. Your desire to think that you, out of all people, and your team out of all teams is going to have the ability to be different, you're wrong. Because every owner, Celtics, Marlins, Knicks, they look in the camera and they say, hey, it's just business. We're back tomorrow with Coca. This is nothing personal.